This is the Holy Land, the place it is said where Abraham led the children of Israel, where Jesus lived and died, and where Mohammed ascended into heaven. And in its heart, just a short distance from Bethlehem and Jerusalem, lies one of the most extraordinary natural wonders of the world, the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is a place of lost cities and fabled civilizations, of destructive forces and human conflict. Its tortured landscape sheds light on how the beliefs of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism were shaped. For it was here, in the book of Genesis, that the story of the Dead Sea begins with the legendary destruction of the cities of sin, Sodom and Gomorrah.
And the Lord rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah fire and brimstone out of heaven. He overthrew those cities of the plain, and all the inhabitants, and all that grew upon the ground. And lo, the smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace. But Lot's wife looked back from behind her, and became a pillar of salt.
The Dead Sea is the physical embodiment of God's wrath on earth. For millennia, its cursed shores were believed to be deadly. Its gaping cliffs, the gateway to hell. This God-forsaken reputation is supported by scientific fact. The Dead Sea is the deepest point on any continent, lying 1,400 feet below the level of the oceans. In summer, temperatures can soar to over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and rainfall is practically unheard of. And pillars of salt really do line its shore. But what gives the Dead Sea its name is its greatest curse. Its waters are so toxic that all fish perish in it. And yet tens of thousands of people flock here every year to float in it. "70 miles from the Mediterranean, the Dead Sea lies at the bottom of an enormous trench on the boundary between Israel and Jordan. Its shore is only 12 miles from, but over 4,000 feet below, the city of Jerusalem. Fed from the north by the waters of the Jordan River, the Dead Sea is actually a 50-mile-long salt lake, divided into a deep northern basin and a shallower, paler blue southern basin. But there is no outlet, and so, trapped in a desert, the water rapidly evaporates to leave a mineral-saturated soup, 10 times saltier than any ocean. Anything submerged in it will be covered in rock salt in a matter of days. A constant struggle for the people who actually live on its shores. For Moti Gonen, the captain of the aptly named Lot's wife, the only way to deal with the buildup of salt is to get in the water and hack it off by hand.
The density of the water is in about 30% heavier than fresh water. So a fatty guy like me needs something around 60 kilograms of lead. הוא מחפש לך. Also, we use a special full face mask, very good for pollution diving. The salty water is so salty that if you drink something like 1 glass of it, it can kill you.
These waters are deadly. If swallowed, the concentrated calcium and magnesium salts will dehydrate the gut and attack the central nervous system. If inhaled, they will destroy lung tissue. A fact most bathers choose to ignore. Further to the south, the climate becomes much hotter and the water a great deal shallower, making the southern basin of the Dead Sea one vast evaporation pond. One effect of which is the creation of these bizarre salt formations. Each spring, these 20-foot wide mushrooms of salt literally grow out of the sea. Within the briny waters, the rising temperature increases the evaporation rate, boiling away the water to leave higher and higher concentrations of salt in the brine. Eventually, there is more mineral than liquid, and the salt begins to precipitate out into these peculiar rock-hard platforms. And rising above the Israeli banks of the southern basin is the most spectacular salt formation of all. This 6-mile-long, half-mile-wide, 500-foot-high ridge is pure rock salt, and it's named after the city legend says it buries, Mount Sodom. Fringed with giant salt spires, the imposing geology is reflected in its smallest crystals. This constant battle with salt is the reason why Lot's wife is the only vessel operating on the Dead Sea. Essential for the work of Professor Zvi Ben Avram of the Dead Sea Research Center. And for Zvi, the power of this landscape has captivated him since childhood.
This place is very unique from many respects. I myself was born on those mountains in a small place near Bethlehem, actually in a small kibbutz between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. And from my place, one could see stretch of the Dead Sea. So it caught my imagination for a long time. But when I grew up and studied geology and geophysics, I realized how unique it is.
Today's V is taking low-frequency soundings of the sea floor. In the northern basin, the Dead Sea reaches a depth of over 1,200 feet. And beneath the seabed itself are millions of years of deposits of salts, muds, and silt. Zvi has found that these sediments continue down for a further 12 kilometers. That's over 7 miles.
And if you take this 12 kilometers of sediment and you combine this with the height of the mountains, which is almost 2 kilometers on the east side and about 1.2 on this side, and you take in consideration the erosion, you come up with probably the deepest crack on Earth, over 15 kilometers, right here.
The clues to how this deepest crack on Earth came into being lie deep within its canyons and ravines. When Eli Raz came to the Dead Sea 25 years ago, its landscape inspired him to become a geologist and to seek to understand its creation.
After I spent here year, 2 years, I started to feel that the area is talking with me. If you just walking around, you start to see a lot of things, and you can start to understand a lot of things about yourself. I can feel that I'm in the right place.
The fossil-rich limestone beds in these canyons tell Ellie that the rocks were laid down at the bottom of an ancient tropical ocean between 60 and 90 million years ago, far older than the Dead Sea itself.
If we compare the new creation of the Dead Sea Valley, if we compare it to the ancient rocks here, which are of 90 million years ago, we are speaking about absolutely new baby born here just 3 million years ago.
From above, it looks as if over those 3 million years, the two sides of the sea simply split apart, in which case the rocks should all be the same age. But amazingly, they are not. Directly opposite where Ellie is standing on the Jordanian shore, another canyon, the Wadi Mojib, reveals a completely different geology. The rocks here are 500 million years older, and they are sandstone. Far from being formed under an ocean, they are in fact the compressed sands of an ancient desert. Where the river has sliced down through the rock over millennia, the patterns of once shifting dunes have been exquisitely revealed. The radical differences between the two sides, one a sandstone desert, the other a limestone sea, means that the Dead Sea could not simply have split open. The two sides have actually slid over 65 miles apart. The Dead Sea is just one small fracture in the largest sequence of cracks on the planet, the Great African Rift Valley. As the Arabian Plate shifted north, the massive movement ripped open a series of vertical and horizontal faults to create the deepest depression on dry land. It was only around 75,000 years ago that the Mediterranean flooded into the depression. In the Ice Age, the level of the oceans dropped, cutting off the body of water. Then, as the climate became hotter and drier, the lake's huge surface began to evaporate. As the level dropped, the salts became more and more concentrated. Despite its placid surface, the earth beneath the sea is still opening. Gigantic earthquakes strike the basin every generation as the two continental plates rip apart. But the destructive forces that ripped open these dramatic canyons have also provided a unique sanctuary for life. The deep ravines provide a natural outlet for a handful of freshwater springs, bringing pockets of abundance to this barren wilderness. Many of the species found here, like these ibex, are migrants from Africa, dating back to a time before Africa and Arabia split. The rock hyrax is found throughout the Great African Rift Valley. Despite its rat-like appearance, it is in fact a distant relative of the elephant. But the human story of the Dead Sea is just as intimately woven into its geology. The very qualities that made the Dead Sea a sanctuary for nature also made it a sanctuary for man. Formed by water percolating through cracks in the limestone, caves like these have provided the people of the Holy Land with a unique hideaway for thousands of years. In the Old Testament, the young King David fled here. He was hiding from the wrath of King Saul, who was jealous of how much David was admired by the women of Israel.
it's not just a story, yes? The story based on evidences, on the fact that the caves in the Judean desert and in Engedi neighborhood, especially, were acted as shelter places. All over the history, even here. What's amazing here that people prepared the caves for shelter.
To this day, the Dead Sea remains a unique area of sanctuary and retreat. Christian Orthodox monasteries like this one at Wadi Kelt have literally been built out of the caves in the cliff walls. This is the biblical wilderness, where Christ wandered for 40 days and nights, a place where people still come to find solitude and God. Even today, this ladder leads to a cave where a hermit still lives in isolation. And right on the banks of the Dead Sea itself, in Qumran, are perhaps the most famous caves in history, the site of the greatest archaeological find of the 20th century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd boy was looking for a lost sheep in this cave. Instead, he discovered a pile of ceramic jars. Each contained a scroll dating back over 2,000 years. In total, over 200 manuscripts have been recovered from the caves of Qumran. Most are text from the Old Testament, the only biblical records from the time of Christ. They were written by a cult of Jews known as the Sons of Light, who, believing the end of the world was nigh, chose to live in this desolate place.
The day of the Lord comes cruel, to make the earth a desolation and destroy its sinners. The sun will be dark, and the rising moon will not shed its light on the day of his fierce anger.
By trapping water from the mountains in huge tanks, the people of Qumran were able to build this community in the desert. Like the monks of today, they devoted their lives to study and prayer. And for over 300 years, they transcribed their unique library onto scrolls, and then hid them in the caves. The unusually low atmospheric humidity of the Dead Sea provides super dry conditions. Away from the light and heat, the caves provide a natural temperature-controlled environment, ideal for preservation. The people who hid the scrolls intended them to survive. In 68 AD, Qumran was indeed destroyed by the apocalypse it feared, not by the anticipated act of God, but by the armies of Rome. Some of the survivors are believed to have fled south, seeking refuge in the most famous sanctuary on the Dead Sea, the cliff-top fortress of Masada. When massive geological upheavals first split the Dead Sea apart, this 1,400-foot-high, half-mile-long block of limestone sheared away from the surrounding mountains. In the 1st century BC, King Herod made use of its precipitous slopes and commanding views to build his greatest stronghold. Every year, nearly 1 million people visit Masada. For Israelis, this is not just a tourist visit. This is a site of pilgrimage, because of the events which unfolded here nearly 2,000 years ago. This rock was the stage on which the most dramatic act of human destruction on the Dead Sea was played out. After the sacking of Qumran, 968 Jewish men, women, and children chose Masada to make their final stand against the might of Imperial Rome. Masada was designed to withstand the greatest of sieges. Its vast grain stores and gigantic water cisterns could hold enough to eat and drink for 10 years. But the rebels hadn't banked on the determination of Rome. Inch by inch, the enemy forced an army of slaves to construct a gigantic ramp. After nearly 3 years of siege in 73 AD, the Romans were ready to make their final assault on the fortress. But when they stormed the battlements, what they found were burning ruins. Rather than face defeat and enslavement, every man, woman, and child in Masada had slit their own throat. A legacy of violence and destruction litters the shores of the Dead Sea. Today, the Dead Sea is the front line of an ongoing conflict. The fault line that runs through its center is not just geological, it's religious and political as well. The middle of the sea is the border between the Jewish state of Israel and the Arab kingdom of Jordan. The northwest is the disputed West Bank of the Jordan River, now the heart of the Palestinian homeland. The reality of these conflicts affects not just the people who live here, but how the land itself is used. For the past 10 years, Udi Yitzhak has lived in the kibbutz Almog, a settlement on the disputed northern shore only a mile away from minefields.
We have the peace process, but we still don't have peace. We will have the real peace, the one that will give people the security to do whatever they want, wherever they want, especially in places like this one, which is next to the border. We'll still need soldiers and defense, but I see it as a temporary problem.
Udi struggles daily to grow crops in this desert. Salt saturates the soil, the dust, even the atmosphere. Fresh water has to be piped from distant springs for irrigation to battle against this constant buildup of salt.
It's not only the heat, it's the salt also. You have to wash it. If you stop watering the plants, then the salt comes back. We have something like around 70% of stones in the ground, which makes the agriculture quite difficult. That's why we have to take the stones out.
But this barren land can be made fertile. It's midwinter, and only half an hour away in Jerusalem, there are frosts. But because of the Dead Sea's depth, below sea level over 4,000 feet lower than Jerusalem, the temperature is tropical. On top of this, the atmosphere is denser than anywhere else on Earth, which means there is 6% more oxygen and carbon dioxide. Provided you have the water, crops like these melons flourish.
Everything grows very fast. You can see the first flowers down here right now. Within 2 months we'll have fruits just to take out from here. As I told you, it will be a few months before it will happen in the other parts.
Even with the benefits of modern irrigation, intensive agriculture here is at the limits of what's possible. And yet thousands of years ago, a large farming community not only existed on these shores, it thrived. 20 miles to the south, in Ein Gedi, archaeologists are unearthing the remains of a 2,000-year-old agricultural settlement. What's more, Ein Gedi was renowned throughout the ancient world for its crops. Not only did they know how to exploit the Dead Sea's unique climate to grow exotic tropical plants, they also found a way to extract priceless medicines and perfumes that nobody else could replicate. One perfume, balsam, was so sought after that Queen Cleopatra begged Mark Antony, unsuccessfully, to give her control over the Dead Sea. Udi has long been fascinated by the agricultural secrets of this ancient community. But the Jewish farmers of Ein Gedi protected their knowledge and wealth with a unique penalty clause, a curse inscribed on the floor of the synagogue.
It's a curse against someone who will tell the knowledge to someone else. I guess that they were quite frightened from that curse. As we can see, it didn't help them anyway, and they disappeared in the end.
Despite their wealth, sometime in the 6th century, the community of Ein Gedi and their secret knowledge mysteriously vanished. Back on Lot's wife, Zvi ben Avram may have found scientific evidence explaining why this community suddenly disappeared. And the clues lie at the bottom of the sea. Changes in climate alter the composition of the sediments laid down on the sea floor. Zvi's soundings show these bands of deposits like rings on a tree going back thousands of years.
The floor of the Dead Sea is the best tape recorder of paleoclimate of the Middle East. The climate which affects the level of the Dead Sea in turn is reflecting the type of sediment that's being deposited down.
Recently, Zvi took a core sample of the top 15 feet of sediments, a record of climate dating back to before the time of Christ. He discovered 2,000 years ago the Dead Sea was a much wetter climate and so more favorable to agriculture. But then, around the 6th century, the sediments changed dramatically. More salts were deposited, which means the sea level was dropping. It became much, much drier. For the community of Ein Gedi, this was an environmental catastrophe. Evidence of other catastrophic droughts are recorded in the Bible.
In the Bible, it's very vividly, they describe period of famine. For example, Abraham had to go down to Egypt. Jacob had to go down to Egypt. There was no food. No food because there was no rain. No rain, the Dead Sea level went down.
With the end of the Ein Gedi community, the Dark Ages began. Superstition replaced civilization. For nearly 15 centuries, the only people to dare visit the shores of the Dead Sea were roaming bands of Bedouin. The reputation of the sea as a wasteland took hold, with tales of deadly vapors and poisonous waters. And yet, it was these qualities that eventually brought people back here at the turn of the century, to exploit the Dead Sea's greatest resource: salt. Today, the entire southern end of the Dead Sea is one vast industrial site. Visible from space. Huge 5-square-mile ponds have been constructed to evaporate valuable minerals for industry, such as magnesium, bromide, and most important of all, potassium chloride, around 5 million tons of which are harvested here every year. The rock salt itself is a mere byproduct of little value on the world market. It's heaped at the roadside. Looking at the scale of today's operation, it's hard to imagine the humble origins of vast factories. Opposite Mount Sodom, these old laborers' huts were 8 hours by boat from the nearest desert road. The first evaporation ponds in the south were dug out by hand in the 1930s. The laborers endured unimaginable conditions.
When the labor camp was opposite the mountain of Sodom, at night they couldn't sleep there. There were tents and huts, they couldn't sleep there. So they came to those caves. The main cave has been this one, because it goes in very deep, was very large, and there was place for hundreds of people. They came here, they slept here, and at the end, they turned it into a recreation center. The recreation center of Sodom and Gomorrah. All this was open. This came down only lately. This was open. There were beds, there were benches, there were tables. There was electricity here. And you can feel how cool it is.
These salt caves in Mount Sodom were dissolved out by rainwater over millennia. Each cavern is a tunnel with a chimney opening to the roof, 500 feet above. As the outside temperature increases, the rising air literally sucks a cooling breeze from the mouth of the cave all the way up the chimney.
These caves made it possible for people to live here, not only to come and work for a day or a week. They lived here. So all the caves in the mountain of Sodom are air-conditioned.
In the wake of the chemical factories, another industry has grown up to exploit the unique mineral resources of the Dead Sea: tourism. Each year, tens of thousands of people flock to the Dead Sea to seek miracle cures by bathing in the waters. Others believe that by smearing themselves in the mineral-rich Dead Sea mud, they will halt the aging process. And yet, medical research is proving that these toxic waters have genuine healing properties. For people suffering from skin complaints like psoriasis, minerals in the water such as magnesium and calcium reduce itching and aid cell regeneration. But the most remarkable secret to the Dead Sea's curative power lies in its low altitude. The deeper one travels below sea level, the denser the atmosphere becomes. This has a unique filtering effect on the rays of the sun. The level of harmful ultraviolet radiation is actually reduced. Not only is it hard to burn at the Dead Sea, at nearly 1,400 feet below sea level, the small fraction of UV radiation that does reach the shore is at precisely the wavelength that has a healing effect on psoriasis.
Are you itching?
The itching is gone, which is great.
Great.
Detailed analysis of solar radiation has enabled doctors like Marco Harari of the Moore Clinic to prescribe exact dosages of sunlight to his patients as accurately as prescribing a drug.
Okay, this is your personal schedule for sun exposure. You have to begin very slowly, only 16 minutes on the sun, between 9 to 12. And afternoon between 2 and 4 o'clock, only 16 minutes. This will be increased to 45 minutes, and 32 minutes, and 36 minutes.
Wow.
It is a lot.
It's a lot of sun.
It's a lot, yeah. A lot of time, but you are able to do this.
The popularity of the Dead Sea as one giant health spa dates back to some of its earliest settlements. In 50 BC, King Herod came here to Calaroy to treat his rheumatic pains. In fact, for thousands of years, people came here to collect a rare and precious ingredient for ancient medicines: blocks of tar.
They use this for various medical purposes. They use it for coating things. And it was one of the few natural products that people could use in all time.
Trapped in reservoirs within the sediments, the tar is released by earthquakes. Despite their weight, the buoyancy of the water forces the blocks to the surface. Occasionally, blocks weighing several tons can be washed up. Although tar made from oil is commonplace today, in the ancient world, the Dead Sea was one of the few places where it occurred naturally, which made these blocks an extremely precious resource. "2,000 years ago, the control of the raw materials from the Dead Sea produced enough wealth to build one of the most amazing archaeological wonders of the world. The miraculous hidden city of Petra. Only 80 miles to the south of the Dead Sea, Petra was rediscovered in 1812. It had been lost for over 1,500 years. It was built by a people known as the Nabateans. Neither Arab or Jew, they worshipped many gods, and between the 1st and 4th centuries controlled the entire eastern shore of the Dead Sea. A great trading city in the desert, Petra was the heart of an economic empire. Raw materials were ferried here on camel caravans, traded, and then exported all over the civilized world. The Nabateans constructed Petra along a labyrinth of shade-giving canyons with technological brilliance. Twisting through every ravine are these networks of water channels, aqueducts, and reservoirs that funneled every available drop of water from miles around into the city, which meant that Petra could support a population of over 30,000 people in a region with only 6 inches of rain a year. Despite the legacy of this remarkable city, little is still known about the Nabateans or what became of them. Petra too fell prey to the forces of destruction that plagued this land. In the 7th century, the Nabateans simply vanished, and their splendid city was abandoned to the desert. One certain contributor to Petra's demise was a massive earthquake. The forces of destruction in this land are powerful. Now evidence is being unearthed that may even lead to the most famous lost cities of all, Sodom and Gomorrah. The Dead Sea has a legacy of destroyed civilizations, from Ein Gedi to Petra, Masada to Qumran. And for archaeologist Dino Politis, the most famous ancient destruction of all, of Sodom and Gomorrah, may be more than just a biblical legend. People have always believed that this barren area to the south of the Dead Sea was once the location of the lost cities. In both the Bible and Quran, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by fire from the sky as balls of flaming sulfur, known as brimstone, rained down from heaven. In fact, the inflammable element sulfur is found throughout this area. It forms naturally into small balls. For Dino, it's no wonder that people believe these stories of destruction.
Here's a quite good one, really. These are the sulfur balls encased in this gypsum. See, there's the gypsum salts around it, and here's the yellow sulfur. I'll break it and see if you can see how it is. This is really, you could start a fire with this. This is what I think the ancients were talking about in the Bible is the brimstone, ancient biblical brimstone. It's right here, and there's lots of it around here. You can see it embedded into the laminated marls. And this is probably what they were talking about when, they're talking about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah by these kind of fireballs. This is exactly what they are, and they're here.
Close by, at a site called Bab-ed-Dra, a genuine Bronze Age city has recently been found. Dating back 5,000 years to the time of Genesis, this could prove to be the lost city of Sodom or Gomorrah.
Wow. Well, see, here this is the top of the wall. You see how wide it is. It's obviously a major defensive wall, major defensive part of the city. And as we looked at down there, that was what the excavators have interpreted as the gateway, and it just runs straight up there.
Apart from these shattered walls, there is other evidence of a mass destruction of biblical proportions, not from above, but from below. The twisted rocks above the site of Bab-ed-Dra are the result of massive earthquakes, which could have unleashed the biblical fire from the heavens. Geologists have discovered large pockets of gas trapped under the sediments here in the southern Dead Sea. If released into the atmosphere by an earthquake, it would take only a spark to ignite a giant inferno, a vast ball of flame raining down on the city.
In front of us we've got a number of these bricks. You can see the kind of fingerprints and things of the ancient makers, but here's a nice size one. See how big it is. This is actually, might very well have been from the major wall. But the interesting thing about this is that it's burnt. And this firing has this orange color, which is not what the natural color would be. It's been burnt fairly hard, not intentionally, but by this fire. So this is here are some that actually might be in situ, but they actually are very good evidence for burning. Easily a city could have been destroyed by a major earthquake coupled with burning, as we saw here too.
With this history of cataclysms, it's small wonder that this land inspired a belief in a vengeful and all-powerful God. And here in Bab-ed-Dra, the cycle of destruction continues today, but in human form.
This is the cemetery of the Bronze Age city of Bab-ed-Dra. And these are all illegally excavated tombs. They're not excavated by archaeologists. And as you can see, there are just hundreds, actually thousands of them. And the information that's lost here is really depressing. I mean, how much has been lost? Between the early Bronze Age, oh my God, they've hit wood. This is a part of a coffin. You can see the outlines of the Sis tomb, and this is the coffin. This is the wood from the coffin. Jesus Christ. Well, there's more wood over there. Bits of the coffin. There's white bones, which is human bones. And God knows what the tomb robbers found. There's cigarette packets from last night. Human bones. Leg bones. What can you do?
Humans are not only destroying their past in the Dead Sea, they are also threatening their future. The whole balance of the Dead Sea is in jeopardy. Every year on the Israeli side alone, 250 million cubic meters of Dead Sea water is pumped into the solar ponds to be evaporated. And to the north, only the merest trickle of water is finding its way into the Dead Sea. Diversion, damming, and irrigation projects throughout the Jordan Valley are draining every available drop of fresh water out of this desert land. Desperately needed to sustain an ever-growing population, the effect has been to dramatically reduce the once mighty flow of the Jordan. The inevitable result is that the Dead Sea is being sucked dry. Today, in reality, the entire southern basin has been drained away. The evaporation ponds are artificial and only exist as long as the pumping continues. At the present rate, the level of the sea will drop by another 300 feet over the next century. And this is creating yet another catastrophe. The shores of the Dead Sea are collapsing. Over the past 2 years, a totally new geological phenomenon has begun. These huge craters, called sinkholes up to 30 feet deep, have been opening up without warning.
Each one developed until they met one each other, and now we have one elongated sinkhole. Just wanted to visit something here. Oh, here is a new one. Here is a new one. Absolutely new. I expected it because the location. It is located on a line of sinkholes. You can see there the sinkholes, and you can see the sinkholes that we came through. You can approach, but very carefully, and you can see the bell shape. It's still narrow, not so wide. Careful, huh? Not so wide. Yeah. This is quite new. Not older than 2 weeks. Not older than 2 weeks.
Ellie documents each new sinkhole in order to plot their spread.
In the past, they were concentrated to the southern part of the Dead Sea. They appeared more and more toward to the north. Now that we can see them all over the Dead Sea.
Last year, a woman was nearly killed when the ground literally fell away beneath her. And new holes are appearing almost daily. After 2 years of study, Ellie has developed a theory for their formation, one that is directly linked to the dramatically falling level of the sea. This can be seen in a cross-section. As the Dead Sea level drops, the underground saltwater table becomes lower. Rainwater then washes away the salts in the ground, leading to the formation of big underground spaces. A fragile crust hides the growing sinkhole. The only clue it's there may be a small depression on the surface, before suddenly and without warning, it collapses.
It's a very big problem, very big problem. I think this is one of the most remarkable examples how nature reacts towards a very brutal interference of human beings. Maybe this is just the beginning of the long disturbance. The sharp disturbance started in the 60s, 70s. Since then, the level started to drop drastically. And we believe that this is the reaction of nature, which tend to go to a new equilibrium, to a new balance.
Whether environmental, geological, historical, or political, the entire history of the Dead Sea is marked by cataclysmic events. Today, the dwindling resources of this unique sea could prove yet another political flashpoint. Analysts predict that the next war in the Middle East will be fought not over oil, but water. Here on the border, the dreams of recent settlers who built what was a shorefront resort only 20 years ago have been destroyed by human conflict and environmental change. For Udi, this bullet-torn restaurant, now a mile away from the sea, epitomizes all the cycles of destruction that have plagued this region.
It's hard to understand now, but it used to be a big restaurant. We're in the north shore of the Dead Sea, now a quite dry and empty area. In the past, it used to be quite a busy place. Still, you can see that the place is deserted and destroyed. You see that the Dead Sea is vanishing as well. The water used to come, that line where you can see the fence, the border fence. We love the desert and we wanted to stay a desert, but we want to see how people can live with nature and with themselves.
For people like Udi, living in the heart of the disputed region, it's hard to be optimistic about the future of this remarkable place.
It's a big question what will happen in the future. I hope that we'll have the courage to do the right thing, so everybody will be able to live with his neighbors without the hatred and the forces that might destroy it.
The Dead Sea has inspired the beliefs of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. It has influenced over 5,000 years of civilization. Without the cataclysmic events that continue to shape the awesome landscape of the Dead Sea, human history would not be the same.
This is PBS.